Good afternoon. I'm Scott Ford, and on behalf of Industry Labs, I want to welcome you. And for those of you who have been along for the ride through today, I want to thank you for your engagement in the conversations today. Industry Labs is a university platform for collaboration with local industry. And through the innovative partnerships forged with companies in the region, Industry Labs links together the region's two economic drivers: manufacturing base and the resources of a tier 1 research university, in a manner to unlock the opportunities to create a more productive, resilient, and skilled region. This is the last, or the third, I should say, of a sequence of 3 panels today on topics that are especially pertinent to our stakeholders in the region. And by that, I mean everyone from students all the way through industry and the academy and forward. The rapid advancement of new technologies, disruptive global events, along with the changing consumer and labor force demographics, has invited companies to fundamentally rethink how they recruit, train, and retain a talented and adaptable workforce. This is a complex problem, one that benefits from the approach of design thinking, with empathy to the end user and an integrated view of those issues. This is one reason, in part, why we've asked Professor Anne-Marie Conrado to moderate this panel. Professor Anne-Marie Conrado serves as the Craig Family Director of the Program in Collaborative Innovation, as well as an Associate Professor of Industrial Design. Those of you who are in the previous panel may recognize Collaborative Innovation. That was the program that the student Matt Dotson spoke to, and fairly certain the quotes that he was giving were coming from Anne-Marie. Her research focuses on using design to address social and humanitarian concerns. In her work, she's won awards at the highest level for both the work within social and humanitarian concerns, as well as within industry and teaching, having won the Young Educator of the Year Award by the Industrial Designers Society of America, as well as the IDSA Business Week Gold Industrial Design Excellence Award. Her experience includes work with companies like Starbucks and McDonald's, as well as she was a forerunner of Industry Labs in terms of a pioneer of reaching out and working with community partners, and had done some innovative work with the city of South Bend several years ago. She's a faculty affiliate in Industry Labs and a true treasure for the university and the region. With that, I'll turn it over to Anne-Marie. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for the incredible introduction, but I am actually truly humbled by the people that are joining me here today on this panel, and to kind of talk about the deep wisdom and experience that we have in our community, and the people who are really transforming where we are all living, working, connecting, raising our families, and hopefully thriving. So today I am really excited to introduce 3 individuals who we're going to hopefully have a really robust conversation. So as you've been doing all day, you should have your ability to kind of ask questions. So I will be excited to kind of get those and moderate those into a really great discussion after each of our panelists has a short discussion about their work. So the 3 that I'd like to introduce. First, we have Tim Wigner, and he has a career that spans over 25 years in the glass industry. He's overseen the production of more than 500 million square feet of tempered glass, 50 million insulated glass units, and as a leader, he's amassed a broad range of experience in architectural, residential, and transportation markets. He has an expertise in process engineering, manufacturing operations, product design and development, strategic sales, and international business. He currently serves as the Global Director of Glass Fabrication and Technical Services for Lippert Components, and he holds multiple advisory board positions with an array of companies in the solar, automotive, and residential sectors. He's a native of Akron, Ohio, a current resident of Granger, Indiana, and he holds an undergraduate degree in business from Indiana University and a master's degree in entrepreneurship from DePaul University in Chicago. Our second esteemed panelist is Paul Perkins, and he is president and co-founder of Amatrol Incorporated, a Jeffersonville, Indiana-based manufacturer of technical learning systems and online interactive multimedia software for colleges, industry, and high schools. Amitral has won many awards, including being named Outstanding Company of the Year for the state of Indiana by the Indiana State Chamber of Commerce, and the prestigious E Award from the U.S. Department of Commerce for Outstanding Success in International Commerce. Personal accomplishments include a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology, author of over 20 books on industrial controls and automation, design of numerous training systems for teaching engineering and technical skills, and consulting on training program development for many Fortune 500 organizations and various foreign governments. Community service activities include serving on the Indiana Governor's Workforce Cabinet, Indiana Chamber of Commerce Executive Board, past chair of the Indiana State Workforce Innovation Council, past chair of the National Governors Association State Workforce Board Chairs Association, and board member of many other national, state, and local organizations. And last, Sue Smith is vice president for the award-winning School of Advanced Manufacturing, Engineering, and Applied Sciences at Ivy Tech Community College. Ms. Smith has been with the college for 30 years in various roles, including corporate college and workforce development, both at the campus and the state level. Her expertise is in consulting, workforce and economic development, program and partnership development, and advanced manufacturing. She works routinely with employers to ensure that the programs in the state align with industry needs. She also represents Ivy Tech in state, national, and international organizations. She participates in numerous national and international partnerships and events as speaker and host. And most recently, she delivered the keynote address at the European Educational Congress in San Sebastian, Spain. She is past president of the American Technical Education Association and currently serves on their board. As you can see, this is a pretty esteemed panel of guests, and we're excited today to talk about those intersections between how we are rethinking education, how we are arming this new workforce, and helping to help our region thrive. So with that, I want to turn it over to our first speaker. They'll each kind of present a bit about their work, and then we'll have a conversation. So, Tim, you are up.
Stand or sit? Either?
I think we've been sitting.
Perfect, that's better. All right, so I talk loud as it is, so I probably don't need this microphone. So quick background about myself. All the college and schooling and all that really doesn't mean all that much. I'm the third generation in my family that's been in the glass industry. And my mother was a design engineer for PPG, and hopefully this works. She worked in a room like this that I'm sure a lot of you may recognize. It was a smoke-filled room with a lot of people in white shirts and ties drawing a bunch of stuff on tables as I saw it as a kid. So my first job ever in the glass industry was working for her just off of this room, doing something with this machine called copying blueprints. And for those of you that have ever done this before, you can smell this picture. It was a job that I'll never forget. But I did this for 2 years as a teenager prior to going to college. And I remember just before leaving for college, there's a huge buzz around the office and everything that was going on there. And it was their biggest job that they were ever designing at that time. And I remember being fascinated by it, and I had no idea what it was. And my mom said, well, if that happens, it's going to be the largest building in the world. And I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And went off to college, and 6 years later, it was this building. 35,000 windows. I remember grinding out those blueprints and stapling them for hours on end. And yeah, so if I have a claim to fame, it's that I made a blueprint for the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur. So it started at a young age for me. I ran off to college, to do other things. Never thought that I would end up in the family business. Not long after that, I think my junior year in college, I decided to go to work. Again, through family connections, started working in the architectural glass industry at, I was 19 or 20 years old, and by the end of that summer, I was the plant manager. So I started young, and the reason I want to discuss this is because I've seen the old way and I've seen the new way. And the old way was, fun. It was an art. It was something new every day. You never knew what you were going to walk into. You never knew what you were going to see. Some of the accidents that I've had the unfortunate pleasure of witnessing are things that I'll never forget, but they're all things that taught me how to do things better, how to do things smarter, how to do things more efficiently. So I worked in this business for a few years, moved to Chicago to go to grad school. Was also running a startup window plant in Chicago, and this is where I met two women that really changed how I look at the world. I was a business major in college, had a lot of expertise in a particular field, but really couldn't put it together technically, and they really taught me the ins and outs of industrial engineering. I did not go to college to be an engineer. I'm not an engineer by trade. I'm kind of one by default. But through that training, I learned how to look at processes, value-added, non-value-added activity. These three guys sitting here in the front will tell you I talk about it every day. If the customer doesn't pay us to do it, then it's non-value added. So I look at it as if we're getting paid to do it or the customer can't do it themselves, then it's providing value. And I've kind of lived by that mantra ever since. I've been involved in a lot of startups, a lot of turnarounds over the years, and it always comes back to value-added, non-value-added activity. The more non-value-added activity you can take out of the process, the more efficient it's going to be and the more money you're going to make. And that's just the most simple way that I've gone about my life in manufacturing and engineering. I taught myself AutoCAD. I went to grad school and got the math skills I needed to be proficient. Have always hired people better and smarter than I am that make me look good. So there's a little bit of a recipe that goes into it, but at the end of the day, the most basic steps in being successful is what's providing value and what's not. And the more non-value added activity you can remove from a process, the better it's going to be, which fast forward leads us to automation and digital manufacturing. So I'm going to try to get through this quick because I could probably talk about this for 3 hours instead of 15 minutes. So I'm currently building a 650,000 square foot plant in Bristol, Indiana, which is about 25 miles straight east of here. This is a state-of-the-art plant. There's parts of the plant that are a little bit more manual processes for one-off and high value-added products and processes. And there's also lights-out manufacturing in there where, we're producing a piece of glass every less than a second at a time, and there's literally no employees working underneath those lights. It's a challenge, to say the least. All said and done, that facility will be supplied with 25 megawatts of power, will produce between 70 and 80 tons of glass a day, and will produce about 2 pieces of glass a second when it's all said and done. So it's high volume, high level of automation, brand new plant. And that's how I ended up here talking about this subject to all of you guys. I had the pleasure of having some Notre Dame folks in to tour the plant and talk about this very subject. And I guess they liked what I had to say, so asked me to say some more. So I could talk about a lot of different things when it comes to this, IT and information security and the challenges that are faced there, right? You talk to IT folks and they're going to tell you there's Russians hiding behind your firewall every 5 minutes trying to take your business down. Whatever, I'm not an expert at that, I don't know. Programmers, electricians, electrical engineers to connect everything together, kind of keep the infrastructure running. Truly integrating the supply chain, right? Not just going paperless, but going seamless to where the suppliers, the fabricators, the customers, and end users are all kind of doing things that they don't know that they're doing, communicating. Power, internet connectivity, infrastructure, redundancy is a whole other issue that I don't think a lot of people are ready for when they take this journey. And then finding and developing industrial engineers that have the patience, skills, and drive to continue pushing forward. It seems that industrial engineering is taking a different route these days, and I don't see people with that same basic mentality of value added versus non-value added. Why are we not hitting the numbers that we think we can? Why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? Just not diving deep enough into the process to understand what's really going on. And I say to my team all the time, we're really good at peeling one layer of the onion. We're really bad at peeling 3 layers of the onion. And a lot of times you have to peel 3 layers of the onion to get to the answer. So today, all that stuff aside, I think I'm just going to focus on 2 things: the direct labor or machine operator side and the challenges that we face. It's right in line with kind of what we talked about in the beginning, as well as what businesses can do to make this easier, because it's not just a one-way street. It's not just an employee issue or a demographics issue. It's also an employer issue and providing a work environment that I think people want to be in. Ask most people what manufacturing looks like. They're going to tell you that, right? An area, dirty, grimy, hot, kind of the sweatshop mentality. That's what most people think manufacturing is. And in reality, it's something like this. At least this is where we are and where we're going. You may work in one of our plants or in our glass plant and not have another person within 300, 400, 500 feet of you. So it's not like you're in close quarters catching COVID every 5 minutes like you heard on the news. Yes, some of that does go on in some work environments that haven't changed, but for the most part, it's a pretty boring job. It really can be. And I think that's really kind of part of what the issue is, especially here in Northern Indiana. We're seeing some really interesting trends with the team members that we hire. You can come to our plant tomorrow with no experience out of high school and instantly make $20 an hour walking in the door. And it's not unrealistic to within 2 or 3 years to be making $30 to $35 an hour. It's completely not realistic. We have people that have been with us now the 2 years that we've been open that are making more than $30 an hour. But what's really strange is we were hoping to attract skilled workers in this area to fill those jobs. And we were getting them to come in the door and interview, and a lot of times to even start, but they wouldn't stay. They would leave. We had people leaving within 2-3 hours. And when we finally stopped and asked, like, what is the problem? Why don't you like this job? Many of them said, it's too boring. And we kind of were taken back by that. Wait a minute, you're making more money than you were at the job you were last at. That can't be it. It's definitely easier. You're sitting, at a workstation or monitoring a piece of equipment all day. Why is that? Why do you not like it? And a lot of people told us, because I don't feel valuable, which was strange, but understandable at the same time, because they probably grew up here in Northern Indiana or somewhere in the Rust Belt, and all they've ever known is hard work. And their sense of value was around going home at night, dog tired, back hurting, clothes dirty, and that's how they felt like they were contributing. So you ask them, hey, sit at this workstation, monitor these cameras, monitor this. No, I can't do that. So we've had a huge shift in our workforce. I would guess of the 70 or 80 direct labor employees we have, I would guess 70% of them now, maybe approaching 80%, are female in their first manufacturing job. And our average age is probably somewhere between 24 and 26 years old, which is very, very interesting to me. I never thought that would be the case. but that is exactly what we're seeing. So we're trying to mold our environment around that demographic and attracting more of those people, because I don't think we're going to change that I have to go home dog tired to feel like I'm contributing mentality. I just think that that's part of the region, part of just where we are in general. And I think part of it is also that they feel they'll be the first ones to be let go because they're not working, quote unquote, hard. So we tell people all the time, we're not interested in hard workers. We're interested in smart workers. We'll help you become a smart worker. We don't need you to be a hard worker. And a lot of times in a process, in a really strong process, the hardest worker is really the worst worker because they're putting so much pressure on everybody else. So we've kind of changed that all around, and we are now doing a lot of training, and this is going to get into the heart of really what I want to talk about, as people come in the door, which leads to the question that came up: are our schools really training the workforce to go into manufacturing? And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, we would tell ourselves absolutely not. At some point, there will probably be a convergence of private industry and public schooling to correct that, because the path that we're on right now, I don't think it's going to sustain. Because we not only have to train people on the most basic things, such as reading a tape measure or dividing numerators by denominators to convert fractions into decimals, or basic multiplication to change from imperial to metric. Of course, we have to go through all that, and that's before we get into things like machine code and really understanding how to run a piece of equipment effectively. So you come into our door and you generally go through a math class with me, which to many of us in this room may seem like basic math, some of the things I just described, but these three guys will tell you, we've had people tell us, I didn't know I needed to be a math whiz to work here. And this is literally converting fractions to decimals. So it's hard, it's difficult, it's definitely not easy. And I hope at some point we can work our way down to the secondary school level and stress the importance of what's really needed in the workforce to keep this country moving forward. I think COVID has exposed a lot of these ills that I'm talking about. And we're seeing some changes, right? I'm hearing about things at Elkhart schools that are different, how they're preparing kids differently, preparing kids to go out in the workforce and not just to go to college. Yeah, gotcha. I could talk about this all day. I literally could talk about this all day. So kind of in closing, I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions afterwards. There's two things really that I would say. One is to schools like Notre Dame, you know, what are you doing to keep your talent here? You're importing kids from all over the country to this area, and in 4 years, they're packing their bags and leaving. Surely we could make flyover country interesting again and a place that people want to go and work. And really the last thing, which my guys are always surprised that I say this, is if you have nieces or daughters or granddaughters, encourage them to get into engineering or math or STEM or manufacturing. There's a huge career opportunity for them. And, you know, companies are trying to change. They're trying to provide a work environment that's, you know, suitable for all people. It's not easy, but it's happening. So think about those types of things. Hopefully, you know, if you have more questions, you can certainly hit me up. This is definitely a topic I can talk about all day long. So I'll cut it off there.
Thank you. Okay, Paul, you're up.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about Amatrol and what we do today, and then I'll also share with you a bit about how we got into the world that we're working in, and hopefully it'll be a perspective that actually might complement some of the things that Tim is talking about, because we're seeing what he's seeing here in Indiana, we're seeing it all over the world in our work. And the reason why is because we make learning systems for technical education, and that includes e-learning courses and hands-on training workstations for developing hands-on skills. And the world that we work in primarily is advanced manufacturing and energy. And the overarching theme of just about everything that we're doing in those two areas is Industry 4.0. It's about how can we connect the world together and maybe make it a little bit less interesting at one level, but I think it does get more interesting at other levels, and I'm sure that's what Tim's finding as he's working with some of the younger folks. But as Anne Marie mentioned, we're based in Indiana. This is our facility down in Jeffersonville, Indiana, but we have two other locations, one in New Jersey, one in Houston, Texas, and we sell our products in all 50 states. We work in 53 foreign countries. We've been in business for 41 years. We're a family-owned business. I'm second generation, and we just had third generation join the business 2 years ago. He's a master's degree at industrial engineer, so hopefully we'll be able to get him trained right, Tim, to dig down in those three layers of the onion. But the facility, you can see a couple pictures of our manufacturing facility there. It's a pretty modern place, and some of the pictures in the upper, that R&D center, those are examples of some of the workstations that we build. So if you can think of any technical skill that would fit into energy and advanced manufacturing, we probably have a workstation that we've built for people to learn how to troubleshoot, tune, design, test out the different skills that they're going to need when they go out and work as either an engineer or a technician or an operator. So we work at all three levels, and even in the management side as well. But we also make complete factory automation systems. So whereas we have workstations that teach all the different pieces and parts of technology, at some point these things all need to come together as people are going to encounter when they go out into the field. And this is an example of the type of systems that we're putting into colleges, universities, and even high schools all over the world right now. This particular system is in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It was put in to support Foxconn and the training. You guys might know they're the largest contract manufacturer in the world with millions of employees, and they make the Apple iPhone is one of their big products. And so Gateway Technical College was charged with developing the training, and we ended up developing a partnership with them to put this system in. And what it has is all kinds of very interesting advanced technology. It's got data analytics, it has smart sensors, it has networking, all the data is going into the cloud. People can grab a cell phone and see what's happening in that system, no matter where they are in the world, not just in the school there. And there's actually a similar system that is close here in Elkhart. Ivy Tech has just put in a system very similar to this. So there's a lot of work being done around the world. The challenge is that the need is so great that for all the great work being done, it sometimes isn't as visible as it needs to be, and maybe there needs to be more of it, which we would certainly support. So in addition to building things like this, we also develop e-learning courses, and our courses this is a huge part of what we do, and some people would say it's the most important part of what we do, because we're trying to impart knowledge to people, and we found that e-learning is by far the best venue to present that, because we can have all kinds of multimedia, we can really appeal to different learning styles, and we can make it interactive, and we can make it individualized. And so people like the idea that they can come in and target specific skills or a specific program, or they can tailor it to what they're doing. And so we have literally thousands of hours of material that make up this body of knowledge that we work with. One of the things that's really set us apart is most of the people that work in the e-learning world are purely e-learning companies. Most of the people that work in the building of training equipment, they're equipment companies. We realized early on that there was an intersection that needed to be made between those two. And so we made the commitment actually to invest in the huge number of people that we needed in instructional design and multimedia and programming, and then also the people that had to design and build engineering workstations and figure out how do you make all that work together. Because if you have something that's been two things that have been developed for the same subject but not in conjunction with each other, we find that oftentimes they don't work very well. And so that's one of the things that we've gained, I think, a very good reputation for. So in addition to working with colleges and universities, another major area of work that we do is in high schools. And to Tim's point of not maybe seeing enough people coming out of high school coming into this world, we absolutely agree with that. The challenge is there's 25,000 school districts in the United States. It's a big challenge right now, and we've got to, I think we've got to make more headway. Fortunately, Department of Defense recognized this. Interestingly enough, pre-COVID, back in around 1917, they recognized that not enough people were going into manufacturing, and I don't know how they figured it out, but somehow they got the idea that, you know, if there was ever a problem in the world, the global supply chain might break down. We've got to have people here in this country that can make this stuff. And so they actually put out a challenge grant to develop a high school advanced manufacturing program with a focus on Industry 4.0. And we and several other partners were chosen to develop this program that's called Ignite. And that's, you're looking at some different elements of it. It has e-learning, it has hands-on, but most importantly, and to Tim's point, is that a big part of technology today is about problem solving, and not just engineers, but people at all levels need to be good problem solvers. And that was one of the things that DoD was quite keen to see us implement in the program, was to actually have design projects and true, you know, 5 whys problem solving of getting down into deep understanding of root causes. And this program has been really successful. We're putting it all over the country today. A very interesting application is actually going on in Iowa that's being supported by John Deere, and they actually are supporting a statewide implementation for the program, and you know, we're very excited about that. The other major area of work that we engage in is actually working directly with industry. So while most of the work that we do is working with public education, we also work directly with industries. And the reason why we do that is not so much that it's a revenue source for us, but it's actually where our best ideas come from. So when we work with it, ultimately the people who are going through school, they're going to end up working in these companies, and those companies are the ones that know what are the skills and what are the technologies that are most needed. And so we typically identify a client. Caterpillar was one years ago. We did some really phenomenal work with. Rockwell's one that we're working with today. Almost all these companies we're doing something with today, but the programs are built around identifying a set of skills for an occupation and then developing programs around that. And our approach is to have a collaborative agreement where we can take that technology and provide it to public education. And you might wonder, why would industry do that? They're giving away their, you know, some of the secrets of how they're going to train people. But most industry would prefer not to be in the training business. They're doing it because they have to, and they would dearly love to see public education having the capacity to be able to fill all their needs. And so they've seen the work that we've done through that process as being a means to get there. And this is actually how we got into education. My dad was an engineer. He was working in the aerospace industry, came back to Southern Indiana. He was a boomerang guy to be with his family, and decided that he, you know, there weren't any aerospace companies and there wasn't a business in Indiana in that area, but there were plenty of companies that needed machines to be designed. And so he started an engineering design house designing machines. And darn it, if every time that he designed a machine, his biggest problem was always the workforce. He realized that the people that, you know, he could design this really cool machine, but if they didn't understand the technology, it was difficult for them to use it. And so he started getting involved in education and ultimately realized that's where his passion lay. And he saw an opportunity to be engaged with technology as an engineer, but do it to help people. And The last point that I wanted to make today was just to share with you that one of the things that we're seeing happening greatly in industry today is because their needs are so immediate. They have a very, very strong focus on ways of getting people skilled up quickly. And one of the things that has helped a lot of companies do that is credentials, short-term certifications. In the Industry 4.0 area, one of the organizations we've been working with very heavily is this group called SACA, the Smart Automation Certification Alliance, and they've developed a family of, they've got over 30 some odd certifications in Industry 4.0. And so a lot of industries today are looking at that. But interestingly enough, there's a whole lot of schools out there that are engaging in this work now and providing that type of service. Ivy Tech happens to be one of them. So that's what I have to share today, and I'll turn it over.
That's a wonderful segue to our last panelist. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. That's some of what I was going to talk about too. So just reiterate some of the things that you're saying. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to talk about workforce development in this age of digitization. And again, I'm the Vice President for the School of Advanced Manufacturing, Engineering, and Applied Science at Ivy Tech Community College. Ivy Tech has all of these sites across the state. We have about over 40, so we try to blanket the state of Indiana. The school has about 10,000 students annually. It is really right now focused very heavily on digital technology. The mission of Ivy Tech is to train the workforce and to train folks to go into higher education. And we have these programs in my school, and the newest one is a Smart Manufacturing and Digital Integration degree, which is built on those SACA certifications. And the justification for that degree is that we have a degree that's industrial technology, which is about a 2.0 level. Then we have the advanced automation robotics technology, which hits in there at the 3.0 level. And then the smart manufacturing and digital integration degree is that systems integration, high level to high technical degree. And how we do that is with these certifications, as Paul mentioned, and as Tim mentioned, non-value added, wasted time is something that we don't have a lot of in our adult population and in the demographic we serve. So they want to come in, they want to get what they need to do their job or to advance in their career, they want to go back out. And so the more we can stack those to credentials that can count for a degree or a certification, the better we are serving them. And so the beauty of that is that industry recognized certificate or credential can be used to skill up the workforce. So an incumbent workforce can get new skills just to those standalone degrees that they can stack on into a higher level. And it gives us multiple on and off ramps. You can see some companies there and some of the certifications they use. And for our students, that's critical, again, because our adult students are mostly working and they want those opportunities to get skilled up. And that really gave us the incentive to design an interdisciplinary degree. And the interdisciplinary degree is something that is designed by employer partners. So an employer can come in and say, I want 3 of these, 2 of these, and 4 of these, and design their own degree that stacks up into an associate level degree program. And we do that for apprenticeships, of course, and we do that because a lot of our employers have very specific jobs that they want very specific skills and not a full 4-year associate degree. So Paul talked a little bit about SACA. This is the way we have been partnering with SACA, and I wanted to show you briefly how this is developed. So if you're an industry partner, you can feel comfortable in how we go about developing these new degrees. So we start with a team that's working, and this team worked nationally. These are some of the companies that were involved and some of the colleges that were involved. And so what we did was we worked with those companies to come up with this competency checklist. So in other words, we said, okay, folks, what does a competent employee need to have in this Industry 4.0 space? And we came up with this list. And so then SACA came alongside us and said, okay, let's figure out what the different levels of these SACA certifications are going to cover. And so we did that. And so the associate level 1 covers those, which coincidentally we already had some curriculum for. Associate level 2 covered those, and we had some curriculum for that as well. And associate level 3 covered the purple ones, and then 4, we had nothing or not much for. So that was the justification in building this Smart Manufacturing and Digital Integration degree. The faculty who built that degree, incidentally, won an award for that from the In-Demand Manufacturers Association, the first educational entity to ever win that. So we're really proud of them. One of them's here in the room, a former one. Anyway, so that's how we set up the SACA certifications to correspond with the specific courses. Those are also crosswalk. So you could get the SACA certification and then crosswalk it to the degree credit. So Ivy Tech is certainly no stranger to providing credentials. We are the top post-secondary credential provider in the state. And there, again, are the SACA certifications are going to be added to those that are listed. Our labs, we have 22 manufacturing labs across the state. 8 of them are going to have that equipment in them. One of them already does. And so implementing the 4.0 process is much like implementing, or is different from implementing the processes in industry, but it also, we think, is going to create an even greater skills gap in the future because of the higher levels of skills that are needed in the digital technology. And so the workforce of tomorrow, we definitely feel that this Smart Manufacturing and Digital Integration degree is going to support that in manufacturing. We, at this time, I believe, are still the only community college to have this degree. And so we're happy to share that out with anyone who's interested. So we're actually not preparing students for Industry 4.0 anymore. We're preparing them for Infinity.0. There are 5 generations in the workforce today. And the interesting thing, and I don't know, Tim, if you would agree with this, but the interesting thing that I hear from our students is they're more concerned about work-life balance than I have ever heard before in my career. So again, short-term training that's flexible and nimble, no wasted time and no waste for the students, creating those pathways. You know, for manufacturers, the advice I would have is pay attention to that culture and that flexibility because the workforce today is very discriminating. One way to do that is to create these pathways and use apprenticeships, and that's a picture of the Flex Lab, the actual lab at Elkhart. And so the digital transformation of education really is about staying engaged with employers. You know, we want to hear what Lippert wants. We want to hear what they need. And we want to be flexible enough to provide that. And then, you know, we're really going to have to, we've already started using different modalities, but we're really going to have to focus on new basic skills. And some of those are things like data analytics and cybersecurity. And one that I would encourage everyone to focus on and remember is ethics. As we get into the age of artificial intelligence, ethics is going to be even more critical. So I think I caught us up. So
That's great. Thank you. So I want to encourage everybody to send in questions, but I will start with one. We've talked a little bit about, you know, potentially some of the boredom or trying to attract people to get into manufacturing. What do you see are some of the biggest challenges to getting them to even start the process of going to school, getting these certifications, taking on this additional thing? Because you guys are doing amazing things. Are we doing enough to attract them to even begin that process? So what are some of those, some thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think we're doing nearly enough. I mean, we've got programs down at the high school level. Connexus, I see some Connexus folks in the room, has been instrumental in helping get funding allocated so that high schools can get equipment for this Industry 4.0 space. So I think there are lots of things being done. I think the individual recruitment is really where we're lacking. And people seeing that, they see it as Tim's slide about manufacturing. Ask them what they think of manufacturing and they'll give you a Henry Ford picture. So.
You know, we're actually working in an industry-sponsored course looking at individuals in the workforce and giving them those opportunities. And many of them don't think about this necessarily as careers. You know, they think about getting through the 9-to-5 day, coming home, having that balance, and it's hard for them to think longer term. So are you doing anything, you know, Tim, with trying to kind of recruit those people, get those people, attract them to these kinds of jobs?
Well, it's hard. I think, kids today, all want to be Jake Paul, right? They, there's just not enough emphasis on reality, I think. So a lot of them come into the workforce, into manufacturing, and are kind of hitting over the head with a sledgehammer as to what reality is. Whether that starts at home or in the school, I don't know the answer. But what drives me the most crazy is, the kids that have ambition that go off to a 4-year college and end up working at Starbucks or, wherever, and that could be the next great manufacturing mine, but they were told or led to believe something from a young age of this stigma of manufacturing, that it's for losers or whatever, and it just seems to stick. So, I think this is a national issue to where people have to realize that what built this country is manufacturing, and what's going to continue to grow it is that. I don't know the answer. I just know that it's broken.
So what, with all this new innovation, this technologies, all the opportunities that come along with it, what direction would you give to students coming into this space in terms of leveraging all of these opportunities into that career? What advice would you have for them?
Well, I think one thing that's important to recognize is that manufacturing isn't just one thing. When you think, if you come to Indiana, maybe the first thing that hits you is it's automotive. And I'm sure a lot of students, a lot of kids have a idea when they think manufacturing, there's a one-to-one correlation of what they're thinking that is. And, manufacturing is making potato chips, it's microchips, it's all kinds of different products. And those environments are very different from each other in many cases. And so not everybody is going to like one particular type of environment. If they realized how broad that whole industry is, that would be one thing I think that would attract more people to it. The second thing is that the explosion of IT type technology. I think most kids that are coming up through high school today are pretty digitally savvy, and they're interested in things that allow them to exercise that skill. And if they realized how many opportunities they're going to get in manufacturing to use IT type skills, I think they would realize that there's some occupations here that are very different than what they might think a traditional occupation is. And there's certainly traditional occupations out there. There's a place for somebody that needs to run a machine, and other types of processes. And some people absolutely love that, but not everybody does, which is why not everybody's flocking to manufacturing. But if they realize that all of a sudden we've had, what they call operational technology and information technology, IT and OT have now merged in these environments, and it's creating all kinds of really cool occupations for people to find as a lifelong pursuit in manufacturing.
We have a question that actually wants to look at what's happening for that younger generation in terms of summer jobs, perhaps the high school students, internships. Do you see opportunities for creating some partnerships to get some exposure to some of these great jobs earlier in their educational career?
Is that a question to me?
Any-
Or you, or?
Well, I think Ivy Tech has really stepped up to do that. We have an internship person whose sole responsibility it is on each campus to set up internships with employer partners. And so we are trying to do that because we think that exposure will really get folks interested in that industry. If you see what's going on at Lippert, that's one thing for Tim to tell you. It's another thing for you to see it. And so I think that's.
From the standpoint of Lippert, what do you guys think?
Yeah,
about?
I mean, I'm not sure of Indiana labor laws and what you actually can and can't do with kids of a certain age. But listen, of course, I mean, I take my son or some of his friends to my plant, and they're just like, this is unbelievable. They think it's the coolest thing in the world. And they have no idea, right? They think manufacturing is, RV running around crazy, banging hammers against the wall. So it's, I think it would be great. I mean, I don't, don't, as much as we televise sports and football and basketball and all these things going on that lead people to think that that's their career, we just don't do the same thing with manufacturing, right? To show kids that you can have fun, you can be successful, you can be challenged in that environment. And I think we get to them too late. I think there's some truth to what you're saying. How we fix that, again, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I know that I would love to work with Penn or Elkhart or any school, Mishawaka, whatever, to bring kids in and expose them to those types of environments and what it could be. How do we do that? I don't know. How do you start step one on that process? I have no idea, but it's definitely something that I think is worthwhile for sure.
One idea for you, New Hampshire and Iowa have 2 high school programs where they take juniors and seniors and they spend time in all kinds of different jobs. They have to do reports. They get evaluated not with a grade, but with what skills they've learned and in terms of analyzing, in terms of testing. So I can get information for people if you're interested in that.
Yeah, Marie, if I could add one thing. Connexus has done some really amazing work in this area. They have a summer internship program for high school students, and we've hired students at our facility, and they've done really well. And one of the things that Connexus did that helped facilitate the success of that program was to do some research work on the labor law side of things, Tim, and they actually created a playbook to help guide manufacturers on what students could and couldn't do. One of the things that was very interesting that I think came out of that, and we actually are graced by having a president, vice president of the organization here today with us, is that we realize that there's a whole lot more that they can do that they can't do.
Yeah.
It's really, there's a myth there around that. And so I think finding ways to, if we're looking at it on a statewide level, is finding ways to just expand those programs and give students a chance to immerse themselves, because once they are there and they experience it, it's going to stick with them a whole lot more than just a video or a field trip, which those are great, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it definitely seems that, we're really struggling with a perception problem among the workforce. In terms of, when you showed that slide, Sue, about the different industries, it seems like the perception is mired in industry between 1.0 and 2.0 perhaps. And yet we're all the way at 4.0. And so trying to, can you talk a little bit about this particular region perhaps? And are we really trying to cultivate from within? Are we able to attract a workforce from without? What is sort of happening and changing in the demographics of this area in terms of how you all are able to, help this community?
Specific to this area, I see it every day. A lot of it is what I said. I truly believe. I think that many kids in this area saw their parents grow up in that old school manufacturing, and there's a lot of ills. There's a lot deeper conversation about it, but I see a lot. I've ran plants in Chicago, in Atlanta, in California, all over the place, and it's unique here, I think, because of the history. And it's hard. There's alcoholism issues, there's drug issues, there's a lot of issues that have happened in this area through time and depression and certain things that I just don't think other kids want to fall back into. I think they see those traps and they're like, I'm not going down that road. So we're fighting that perception as well. It's a tough thing to do. I think it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but all of us have to, for the betterment of the area and the growth of the area, we have to keep trying to eliminate that stigma that manufacturing is all of those things, right? So it's tough, and especially northern Indiana or the Rust Belt. I grew up in Northeast Ohio. It's the same thing there. It's hard. We have to do it. It's what keeps the economy alive. Look, people don't move to Northeast Ohio or northern Indiana because of the weather. They certainly don't. So, whatever we can do to make it an enjoyable place is ultimately what we have to do. It's for our own betterment altogether, collectively, for sure.
Let's switch gears a bit, and we have another question talking about the infrastructure in the region, in particular the broadband infrastructure. Is it sufficient to support what you all are trying to do in terms of Industry 4.0, adopting the technologies, the bandwidth, and that type of thing across? Any thoughts on that for anyone?
Well, I live it every day, so it definitely could be better, for sure. Space is king. If you want to build, generally it's in a place like Bristol, where we are, that had very little power, has very poor cell phone reception, like guys will tell you right now. The utilities are good. I think that's because of our proximity, Chicago, Detroit, and the Great Lakes. The power seems to be fine. The water quality here is terrible. It is absolutely terrible, for those of you that don't know. Broadband is an issue, right? Especially when you're running a lot of communications back and forth to a cloud. I had this fight with Lippert IT, right? I would love to have everything on the cloud, but servers right here in my office, and I can reboot it when I have to, and it doesn't shut my plant down. So it's definitely not Atlanta, right? But I think it's sufficient. Now, the further we grow out, more into Southwest Michigan and east, I think it's going to become more and more difficult, right? But NIPSCO, AEP, those teams, the utilities they seem to be pretty good here. Yeah.
Great. Perhaps another question is, speaking about the types of training and the education and the certifications that you are getting requests for from industry in terms of organizations that are trying to make this shift or this transition. Can you speak a little bit more about what industry is still wanting more of?
Since we introduced the SOCA certifications, and Indiana was one of the participating states in the validation of those SOCA certifications in the beginning. And so when industries started using those, they absolutely want more. They want, to get as much as they can. They want to put as many people through as they can. They see the need for that. I think that, more and more we're seeing our industry partners at Ivy Tech saying, okay, well, I can't let this person go for 4 years to get their degree, but I can let them go for 2 weeks and 2 days a week for 2 weeks. And so we're seeing a lot more of that, which is again why we're looking at these little pieces and chunks of training to get to these higher level degrees instead of 16 weeks in the classroom.
So more flexible programming, ways to kind of interweave this with their current jobs.
Yeah.
And would you have any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I would concur totally with what Sue's describing. I also might add that one of the things that's an interesting dynamic that's going on right now, because the labor shortage is so acute at the moment, companies are looking for every corner where they can find people. And so, people already in the company are a tremendous resource for them. And so we're seeing a lot of companies that are putting a great deal of effort into upskilling with the workforce, moving somebody from one occupation to another. And so we're not only seeing the need for the high-end skills because of all the Industry 4.0 technology, but we're actually seeing a pretty strong interest in areas like basic electricity, because they're now taking somebody who is an operator and they're trying to train them to be a basic maintenance person. So it's really kind of an interesting world where it's like check all of the above right now in training.
And maybe as a kind of a final question, we talked a lot about the employees and things. What about the companies trying to make that transition? What role do you see, perhaps some of your systems, Paul, or even at an educational level? How do we help some of these smaller manufacturers actually who might still be in Industry 2.0? How are we helping them to make a shift?
I'd be glad to start off. Well, I think that when you look at big companies today, one thing that's interesting, Industry 4.0, the technology, it is highly developed right now. It's continuing to move forward in leaps and bounds, but there's a lot of good technology that any company could implement. Big companies have the resources, they have the people, they can take people and put them on a task force and work on it. Smaller companies, they've got people that kind of have to keep their hands on the controls. And so to pull off and get a group of people to go work on it is a bit of a challenge for them. And so, and the second area is when they don't have people that already know about it, sometimes there's a concern, you know, what if we invest in this and it doesn't work out? There's a little bit of the unknown. And one of the programs that actually exists here in Indiana right now that I believe is funded by the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, and Connexus ended up being the partner to help roll out the program, and is a grant program for small companies to implement Industry 4.0 technology. And so I think that, you know, it's one of the first in the country. There's only a couple other states I know that are even doing anything like it, and I think this is the best program in the country right now. They've already funded, I think, like $20 million of grants. I mean, it's pretty robust, but it could be a lot bigger. And helping companies get over that hump of the unknown, I think, is what we're going to need to see, because over half the companies are small, medium-sized, or half the people that work in companies are working in small and medium-sized companies. So if we're really going to move the needle, we've got to attack the small and medium-sized industry and help them with that. So it's not only that they need to be able to come to places like Ivy Tech and get short-term credentials to learn about it, but I think they also do need help from a financial technical standpoint of implementing it.
Well, and I think that a lot of the small and medium companies are sort of approaching this the way they did Lean Six Sigma many years ago. And that is, you know, we're doing one process at a time. We're doing one line at a time. We're doing, you know, and then we're measuring the result. And if the result is good, which it usually is with, you know, with automation and robotics and those kinds of processes, then they're ready to tackle another. So you don't see a lot of companies, except, you know, companies like Lippert, who are very big, who go in and say, it's all a dark factory, you know, and you just don't have the opportunity to do that, or the, you know, resources to do that.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, you take those small wins, you know, you do something, you introduce some sort of efficiency, and then you build confidence in that. And I think that's really exciting to maybe kind of wrap this up is, you know, Industry Labs is trying to do that, is working with these companies in the region, trying to make these connections, introducing small efficiencies that over time can make a big impact. But I think if I had to take anything away from today, I think the perception problem around manufacturing remains probably our biggest challenge. As much as we can solve and have, you know, these manufacturing efficiencies, this 4.0, if we don't, it's not just if you build it, they will come. So we need to work as well on that human-centered piece and attracting that workforce to this area. So I just want to thank all our panelists today for joining us, and to thank you all for sitting. And I'm sure some of them would be happy to take more individual conversations and continue this for a few minutes. So